voice is very hoarse, and I apologize. Hope to get rid of this cold soon. And I was told the best thing to do would be to tell you a bike story. And everyone who bikes has bike stories. And of course, that's kind of irrelevant to what you're up here working on, but I thought I'd tell you about a story anyway. Well, what the heck? So a couple of years ago, I was over in Madras, and I just had for the first time a chip on my phone that would enable me to see a map of the local area. And so I woke up really early in the morning. My son was attending a water polo match, and I brought up the local map, and I said, oh, look, these really cool roads. I can go down this highway to cross the Chutes River, and then there's a road that goes up the other side, and then it goes up to this dam, and it circles back around, and this will be great. And so my son wasn't playing for many hours later, and so I set off on this bike ride and went down to the Chutes River, and that was great. And then it just started hailstorm, freezing cold, and I'm sure some of you have been in that situation. But I was like, okay, I got to keep going, I got to keep going. Kept going, finally cleared up out of the valley, and now it's not just hailing, the wind's blowing, and it's really miserable. And at that point, my cell phone dies. So there is no calling anyone or looking at the map to figure out exactly where the heck I am, and all I could do was follow the road I was on. Well, the road goes from pavement to gravel, from gravel to dirt, and then basically to shrubs. And I'm thinking, am I going to have to, now I'm about 3 hours into this at this point, am I going to have to go all the way back or not? And finally I come over a crest and I see the reservoir, and I knew I was heading for this dam, and so I'm like, I'm safe. And well, it was very interesting to see some nice undisturbed campfires right in the middle of the road. Obviously, not a lot of people had been this way for some time, but I'm like, oh, there's the lake, I'll just keep going. And I get to the lake, and I'm on the road circling it, and then I come to a big high fence, and the fence says, absolutely no trespassing, federal property. And what would you do in that situation? So I studied this fence, and it had all these warnings, and it said monitored and so forth, and I'm looking, is there any cameras here? And then I thought, well, I hope they don't have any dogs on the other side of the fence. And finally, I dismantled my bike into pieces and got it. It was, I don't know, probably a 12-foot fence. I had to get each piece up and over and down to the other side, and climbed over the barbed wire, reassembled the bike, and then did the fastest sprint across that dam that you have ever seen in your life. And I'm glad to report I did not get arrested. It would have been very embarrassing as a pretty new senator here on Capitol Hill. Trespassing on federal property. But there's so much thrill to that day. I had more fun that day, despite the suffering, than virtually any day I've had. Not that I'm going to go back and retrace the same route, at least not without an Oregon team with me to enjoy it with
we'll come out.
Meals or so forth. And speaking of the Oregon team, maybe all the Oregon folks can raise their hand.
All right.
Best biking community in the country. So in Oregon, we're setting up all these different trails, rails to trails, and logging roads to trails, and improving on road pathways, and all that's great. But we're also working really hard on the metropolitan areas to make biking an essential or completely functioning part of the transportation system. It takes onto bikes than it does to add a lane of freeway where you add a few more cars and everybody just still sits there.
That's right.
And of course there's the whole safety dimension, because it is scary. Everyone who bikes a lot, you go down eventually, you get hit eventually. When I was here in the 1980s working for the Congressional Budget Office, I was biking to work, as I did most of the time, and a car passed me and then turned right immediately into the street. And I turned right as hard as I could, hoping it wouldn't grab me, but it was a car with one of those old hook bumpers on the back end. And it grabbed the back of my bike and threw me up, and I come down in this big pile of arms poking through the middle of the bike frame and so forth. And the fellow walks up to me, he stops his car, and he comes up to me and he helps me up and so forth. And he was very kind. Asked me how many bones were broken. I was kind of like, what are you doing? How could you possibly just drive right past me and turn into me? And he said, well, where I come from, people don't really ride bikes. And, so a lot of folks aren't looking, they're not conscious, and we have to watch out for ourselves, but we also have to redesign our transportation system to make it I know when you come to a convention, you're bringing ideas to share, and everybody gets to come and kind of steal the best ideas from other parts of the country and go try them out. And it's just a pleasure to see you all every year. Thank you for being engaged in this enterprise that makes our bodies better, makes our lives happier, and makes our environment a much better place, makes the world a better place. So well done. I look forward to continuing.